Welcome, everyone, to another adventure into reality. I am joined by my intrepid co-host, Martina GrübMueller. Welcome to the show, Martina. How are you doing today?
Always excited being here with you on a Tuesday.
Yes, we are in for a show of unique expansion. So everybody that's in the chat room, that's in the different places and spaces, we want you to calm your energies down. We have all this weird energies going on in the world that's some driving you this way, some driving you this way, some driving you internal, some driving you external, some making you eternally pissed. Today's show is actually what we're going to call the No Plan show. And I've used this statement over many radio stations, many eras of conversation, and where people can be on no plan, which is the plan. And part of presenting radio is to know the breadth of what you know, but also having these fluid conversations where Martina and I, and generally we don't have much notes. We maybe have a sentence or two which describes the show, and then we are able to enter our field of experience and go off. Martina, share a little bit of the background as well, what it's like when we plan a show.
Well, planning a show with Andrew is very interesting because most of the shows there is no plan until the very last minute, until maybe on a Monday, I get a chance to maybe have a quick, send him a quick couple of ideas and then he ignores them. And then the Tuesday, half an hour before we go on, we say, okay, so what are we going to talk about? And then obviously, Robert always puts up that lovely, I don't know how he manages to even put something on it, and then we just get on with it, so it's great.
Yes.
It's really good fun to do it that way.
Then the radio goes live. And here we are. What are the mechanics of going pre-live to live for you? What is the spiritual stuff going on for you?
Okay, so for me, when Robert puts the music on, it's like I see myself sitting in this Maserati, and off we go. It's almost like on a roller coaster. When you're getting ready, the music comes on, and we know we're getting started. So it's exciting. I perceive when we get on with it that it gets a bit more crowded. There's more energy coming in, and we're starting to connect to all these different hubs of interconnectivity.
Exactly. Now, many have heard me say before I peek into the show what the potential futures are. There are times that I don't, but pretty much 96 to 97% of the shows, I peek into the Akashic Records for the total potentiality of what could happen with a total amount of people that are going to be live and semi-live. So right now, there's a whole bunch of people who are just starting the video, and because they want to start it from the beginning, they're not live with us. They're 3 minutes behind us. They're still watching me going, welcome, welcome, welcome. And then after a while, you could have 600, 700, or 1,000 playbacks. So that means there's an additional 1,000 people watching beyond YouTube, beyond the Zoom room, beyond Facebook, that are starting the video in different places. So the video itself is live for the people that are here in the chat room or live on Facebook or live on YouTube, except for those people who are slightly in the past. This presents a perception that I want people to think of. How real is time for us? Okay. We've talked about Roman numeral time being the addict, the addiction frequency, but we all experience this live, not so live energy all the time. Your TV shows that are played live aren't really played live. They're usually on a delay so they can stop swearing. In this frequency, those that are in the Zoom room and those that are simulcast onto YouTube, Facebook, there is a delay. There's a restream delay. Sometimes it can be as little as 3 seconds, and sometimes it can be as much as a minute. But that's based off of the streaming style. But for those that are in the Zoom room, you are technically live, with all of these other people in different playback modes. So I want to talk about the no plan for a second. Now, we have a lot of people reacting to that. Martina, you've heard me talk about it many, many times before. And what are some of the things you want to talk about when it comes to the no plan plan?
The no plan. I used to call that played by ear. That's the first thing I learned when I moved to South Africa. We played by ear, and the no plan is similar to that for me. And it's very much like getting into the present moment, because as you're in the present moment, you're getting into the body, you're getting onto the superhighway, and everything is actually available to you at the time. And this is where the harmonics are coming in, the vibration, the frequency, and the harmony. Because when you're in this present moment, in this no plan, you actually have no expectations, you have no projections, so you can really look at what are the harmonics and you can pull them all together as they come in.
Wonderfully stated. Now I want to challenge the audience. What are the harmonics of what you're feeling right now? If you are slightly delayed on Facebook or YouTube, or in a playback scenario hearing this a few minutes from now, you are still a part of this ever-present moment of now. We are all of our past, present, and future lives simultaneously existing. And learning to accept that as part of moment-to-moment living is what will make you a more potent, powerful observer of time and space. So what are the harmonics and frequency of being in this no plan moment of live radio? What I'm trying to get at is you can feel it too. All of you empaths out there that wear the red badge of courage that is I'm a damn empath and I love it, and put it on your Facebook wall, tune into that. Put your empathic energy onto the live frequency.
And really perceiving, and I can basically perceive all of the energies at the same time. And I think what could probably come up for some people is this safe to do that? Can I do this? How does it work with the sovereign boundaries here? Do I need some form of protection? Do you want to say something along those lines?
Protection is a very unique word. When one says protection, there's a perception of offense.
Mm-hmm.
Is there always a presentation of offense in your frequency? Therefore, protection takes on a different reality word. Can you live without protection?
Exactly. So that's the thing. You know, I don't necessarily do protection because I don't have many points of views. And when you come from the sacred neutral perspective and background, you don't necessarily perceive, you don't have fear. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that you could give a tacit consent to something, right? That in unawareness.
That's why the daily practice is so important, to close those loopholes and back doors of tacit consent.
Yes. Okay. And so what you're actually saying here is when you get to that level of self-mastery and self-healing and sovereignty, you can then simply say, this is actually has become my protection, if you wish.
My emanation of my sovereign practice state is my protection.
And what comes up here now is you're actually on that level of awareness, you start perceiving very quickly if there's something coming in that is not on the same level of frequency.
And as soon as something comes in that isn't the same level of frequency, your inner discernment takes over to close that loophole and question why those internal or external messages are being perceived, received, and what are the changes they're making without your authority, without your consent.
Exactly. And this is then when you step into that out creation phase and you start flipping the frequency, you know, and say, okay,
exactly.
I am not here to be influenced by anyone. I'm here actually to emanate what I am, and people can then pick up that energy or they don't. Free choice.
And on that journey of free choice also represents when one takes a strategy beyond the word protection and they understand the word fortifying your reality.
Yes. I really like that, because initially when we were talking about fortifying your reality, I had to look up the word, being not an English speaker, and that's actually taken out completely that need for protection from a fear perspective, if you wish. Absolutely, yes.
And now that fear perspective can drive people down an ideology and a philosophy that seems logical at the moment, but when they take a step back, they realize that that's actually very illogical, and the philosophy itself is self-destructive. When you allow that fear state to influence the core sympathetic and parasympathetic you.
Absolutely. And it's also, like what I do with every word, every emotion, I look at what does it actually mean to me, fear, and how many misidentifications and applications, applications do we have for fear? And it's very much like fear is an emotion of the future. And as soon as you become fearful or anxious or something, it's always an indication that you're actually not in the present moment. You are in the outcome, you're in expectation or projection. And that's always like taking yourself back into the present moment where there is no fear.
And taking yourself into that no fear state, for many people, is going to the edge of the unknown, because they've lived in a limited form of paranoia, a limited form of hesitation and doubt, and another limited form of false evidence appearing real, that they are self-fulfilling their own fear prophecies, that the edge of the unknown has nothing to do with protection or defense. It is simply allowing the universe to fulfill you.
Okay, so this is a really good point now, okay, because that hardly gets discussed when you talk about fear, because it's actually the opposite of what we're talking about here. It's acknowledging the expansiveness that you truly are and allowing it. So what you're saying here is fear, or the idea of fear, can creep in when you're making yourself too small, when you're too limited. So a good way of then looking at that is, how can you expand yourself? You drop all your barriers and you expand yourself out beyond, obviously, beyond the room, beyond the house, beyond the country, even if you wish. And all of a sudden that fear that you initially thought there was just pops like this, like a balloon.
So well said. I also want to make a statement. Both Martina and I have unique styles. There are times that I make very short but deep statements that you have to rhetorically answer or not answer. And Martina's other style is explain, but allow you to discern the answer through the language that she uses. So oftentimes we are saying the same thing, but it's such a unique style that it makes your sympathetic and parasympathetic go, pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So when I make these bold statements and don't finish them, I do that on purpose to get you to think stronger. Because fear stops strong thinking. It makes weak thinking, weak pattern recognition.
Okay, so are you saying I need to stop my explanations?
No, you just need to do it the Martina way. And that's what I love, why I love being able to do shows with you. I get everything you're saying.
I know, and I'm not, it's almost like you say something and then I think I'm translating it in a way. So let's look at it from that perspective, so that more people are going to get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're an explainer.
I'm an explainer.
I'm a staccato. Here's the truth. You figure it out.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Okay. And so something I want to touch on. We all have an inner part of us that uses fear as the explainer or definer, or the inner part of us that takes fear to make instant judgment. So just what I'm talking about, you have inner dialogue with yourself, but many people don't recognize this inner dialogue, especially when it comes to the fear state, because it's so powerful and adrenaline. Like when somebody's really in a paranoid state and they hear voices, or they get all these feelings that people are watching them, they're chasing them. All of those are your psychic skills amplified, overloading the actual I am presence with information. And the I am presence is kicked out of the body. And then the programs inside you become the fear explainers. I am afraid of this because I will get hurt.
Yeah. So it's really a distraction, if you look at it. Fear or lots of emotions actually are actually a distraction, taking you off the path, taking you off what you want to do, push you back into the old, habit patterns. And as you say, often, throw you out of the body too, right?
Well, that's the whole point. The less you're in the body, the more the programs win.
Exactly. And there's another thing I want to say about fear, because I had to look at that. It's, when you get those butterflies and you think, oh my God, I'm so afraid. And what if you're actually not afraid? What if you're excited?
Oh, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
And that's actually something I wanted to say. Like, as I'm starting the show, there's a butterfly energy of going live. But after doing it for so many years, that butterfly has transformed into an inner enthusiasm to get the energies turned up. So that 30 seconds before I go, welcome, 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 I'm tuning the harmony and the frequency to the highest level. And then every few minutes, it's a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's like the train that just gets chugging and going more and more and more and more.
And in addition to that, actually, what it shows me, because I can perceive what you're saying, and it happens for me too. I can be actually quite tired before I come onto the show. And as soon as we get on it, it's all this tiredness disappears, and right there I am, And I think that's also an indication that what you're doing is the right thing for you, at least in this moment in time. It is that joy that comes with it.
So the next thing I want to talk about is being a presenter in the modern world. Each and every person here should put at least one podcast out once in your lifetime to know what it feels like to actually have the responsibility of presenting information at a high enough frequency people can impart something for the information. The experience alone, okay? So Martina, I think it was a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we did our first show, wasn't it?
2018 when we did the mentorship together. Remember we did?
Yeah, but I think I had you on once before that.
Probably, yeah, but I was on in the background. Remember?
Yeah, it was just in the background. I think it was a mentorship call. Yes.
That was just to get an idea what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was excited then because the more people with bodies, without bodies, the more excited I get.
So, what are the subject matters that people should attempt to tackle in that one attempt I'm going to do? There are certain subject matters that the bar is so high, you're never going to have great success at. Like talking about the baby raping lizards and the child sex trafficking stuff. That's a garbage first show. Great topic, but you won't be able to handle the negativities of the frequencies. Okay? It will only open you up to looking at darkness, and then darkness will be looking back at you.
Okay, so if I look at that from my own experience, I would, because everybody has different topics, everyone loves different things. I'd actually start, come from a place of preparedness and talk about the things that you do know for your first show. And actually that is fun for you. And even maybe choose a partner to talk to, or more than just one, where you, who you know, if you have issues with putting yourself out there.
The real challenge is, can you do it yourself for 1 hour? It's like the consciousness strike. When I first wrote it, the first part was 12 pages and 19 pages when it was done. It is meant as an endurance journey. Now, most people can't talk more than 5 minutes when they're by themselves without having anxiety, frustration, or anything else that comes up that stops them. And most people have stopped their own personal education process where they won't formulate a speech, they won't practice it, they won't even use bullet points. Like when I do my big products and stuff, I just have bullet points. I don't have whole speeches. Now there are some places that I use a teleprompter because there's a lot of information you got to impart, and I don't want to have 25 takes to do it. Getting people to that 1 hour mark, meaning you are going to truly push your edge of unknowingness about your personality being in your body. Yes. That's the ultimate challenge, being present in your body for 1 hour at a highly focused state. Now I'm going to pose this to the audience. How many think they can do it?
And there's many ways of doing it, because if I think about it, in my corporate life, I've done lots of presentations which weren't facilitations. So you had your monitor, you had your I can't remember the program now, where you showed your slides and everything, you know, to get started like that. Yeah.
The majority of the people are saying yes, they could. For everyone that said yes, you could, the challenge now lays at your feet. For everyone that said no, the challenge lays at your feet. Are you being run by fear? That's for both people. The fear of actually doing it and the fear of choosing to do it. They're both in the same state, but in a slightly different perspective of how the fear will limit them from being present in their body a week or a month in the future when they decide to go live. Just like we talked about when we opened the show. Can you just talk for an hour or 2 hours with no plan, being embodied, then not babbling?
Okay, so you're actually really focusing on the no plan, because I was just going to say, if
both, it's no plan or plan, whatever's going to keep you embodied. Right.
Yeah.
Whatever tools, tips, or techniques you need to keep yourself embodied, and you're not a monotone personality.
Because, you know, I just want to really remind people too, is that fear often only creeps in if there's lack of information. So if you have enough notes or, you know, slides, whatever you want to show, it eradicates the fear, because you basically, even if you just read it at the first time, you know.
Right. When I first started doing in public speeches, I had a slideshow, I had bullet points, and I got to the point where I just needed the picture that would stay up there for 4 or 5 minutes, and I could go on for 45 minutes, change the picture, or every 5 minutes change the picture, or every now and then just look at my bullet point to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
It's because I had familiarized myself with the material in a not a raw memorization state, in a knowingness state.
Yeah, in a preparedness state. So, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with preparing yourself. And very often in the beginning, when I started weaning myself off presenting with slides and all of that, I made myself those notes, and it was just a backup. Most of the times I didn't need them, but it was almost like a security blanket if I did.
And there's nothing wrong with a blankie.
Absolutely not.
Nothing wrong with a blankie and a binky. As
long as you don't start sucking it in front of the, you know, screen. But other than that,
that's your cup of water. That's your cup of water replaces the nipple. Okay. It allows you a pause just for pause's sake. Because sometimes the brain gets ahead of itself and starts experiencing this past, present, and future state. And it stays hard to stay in the present when the future is coming up on you like a freight train really fast.
Yeah. And never underestimate the pause. I have witnessed presenters, they're pausing all the time, and it's like you're hanging on to their lips because it's like, what's next? Come on, give it to me. They're really pulling energy from their audience. Yeah. I wish I could do this. I'm too fast, but you know.
I do it all the time. We just had someone comment before about finish your statement. No. Think about it. No.
I know.
Planned pause for you to contemplate.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to worry about being a conversational criminal or some terrorist, where you're saying, because, you know, yeah.
It's not like it's like what's his face? The guy from Star Trek who's got pausia. He randomly pauses a sentence here and there.
It's very, very powerful to do that. Very powerful. And also the other thing is, any accent, do never ever make yourself smaller thinking that, you know, your accent is bad or you're not going to bring your point across. Very powerful. The pheromones in the voice are very powerful.
And it's okay every now and then to talk it out in your native language to figure out the English version.
And
it's okay.
I just forgot.
It's okay to show a flaw. It's
Oh,
very
yeah.
okay to show a flaw.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, it will endear the audience even more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the old thing, there is no such thing as failure. Everything is an experience. And, if you come from the place of, I might be failing, well, you're never going to get started.
Okay. Is failure an experience?
It's for me, failure is there's no such thing as failure. I don't do failure. Everything is just an experience. Everything is just it's an experience for me. It's a learning. It's how can I make it better? It's checking it out. What works?
Is it a misperception of an experience?
Is it?
I'm asking you to process it with a long pause. So you can explain it.
Okay. For me, is it a misperception of experience? It depends how you define experience. For me, experience has no point of view. It's neither good or bad. So it is what it is.
Okay, so if an artist is making a painting and the last brushstroke doesn't go the way he wants, but it's still a beautiful art piece, but the artist thinks it's a failure, is it a failure or a success?
It will very much depend on what the artist thinks, because for me, it's not going to be a failure. It's a perception.
Failure is a perception that may have many perspectives that drive it into failure's point of view. And failure as a point of view is another very limiting process that we have in us that's modified by the sympathetics and parasympathetics immediate judgment mode we have. Doing any form of presentation, you have to get out of immediate judgment mode. It's what makes you stumble over your words and seem unconfident.
Yeah. And I want to add something to this, because what I've learned through the work with you and doing these shows is like, we know there's nothing really right or wrong. And it's really, especially when you do the channeling or something, everyone comes from their own authentic truth, isn't it? From their own filters, from their own experiences. So everyone comes up with different stuff anyhow. So the sacred neutral perspective is really sacred neutral.
As well as judgment free.
Yes.
Entering that non-judgment state for people that are first-time presenters that are going to take up the challenge, it will be one of those stumbling blocks that you have that's going to delay the show. It's going to stop here. It's going to be what I call cock blocking. Okay? And I use that term obviously to innate that your sexuality energy, your potent energy has to be present, or you will find a degradement of your own energy. Now, that's not copulation energy. That's the magical you. And a lot of people have that challenge of summoning the magical them and remaining in the body as a magical I am.
Yeah. And that's the programming. That's the programming. The more programming you let go, the less you have that.
So how do people let go of programming through the metaphor of doing a show? Let's set up a little strategy for them where we can maybe give them some ideas of a bullet points where they can plan to do a show for themselves about their own self-presentation, which is their own healing for them.
Yes. Well, initially, I want to say something maybe. What is a good thing to do is to actually get onto a show where you have an opportunity to raise your hand and say something. So just to get used to what it's like to have your own voice heard on the radio. Mm-hmm. So where you can actually, for instance, our shows on our Zooms on Wednesday, people have an opportunity to say something or not. But most people actually raise their hands and they start talking. And that's an initiation into all of that, to start their own stuff. Right?
Right. By choosing that I need to have that frequency, the taste test.
by committing themselves to show up. And, you know, if they don't want to be seen at that stage, at least they're talking, or they just show their picture. So it's almost like getting used to it, practicing.
Okay. Monty Dean, who's on the comedy show with me every other Friday, he has an open roundtable every Tuesday. And Monty, if you're in the chat room, if you want to post the times and everything, there's another opportunity for you to go to speak your mind. It's an open roundtable. It is a war zone, but it's an open roundtable.
Yeah. And it also, you know, like on this show or even on our Zoom show, I get a lot of feedback was saying, people saying they feel very comfortable coming on because we are all working in the sacred neutral.
Exactly.
So it is probably, you need to choose which show you want to get on and which one you probably want to stay away at.
Exactly. Because you don't want to be a love and lighter on a flat earth call.
Yeah. No.
So making that choice to feel that experience and then the follow through. You can do it with a headset and an open microphone on your laptop. If you are technologically challenged, you are going to have all these other doubts and fears that come over you because we call them gremlins. And Robert, if you're here a second to pop in, you could attest to where gremlins just come out of nowhere.
I have to come on physically to say that and say, yes, gremlins just come out of nowhere. Everything's going great. And then all of a sudden it just goes boom.
Yep, boom. What are you going to do, the tough technology people, when that happens? Overcome it. Overcome that anti-technology side to unmute yourself, hit record, sit in front of it, and then get over the fear of being live. Technology fears are so self-defeating for certain soul families that there are plenty of millennials who don't know technology, but there are a lot of boomers that are so afraid of technology, they're still trying to flip over their CDs.
Yeah, and frankly, at the end of the day, you can always blame it on the technology. So, you know, it's got nothing to do with you, really. I mean, I don't see an issue with that.
Okay. Or you can accept that there's a buildup of negative energy in you, that as the challenge to just recording yourself at 1 hour, you can overcome that fear of technology. You only got to learn to hit 4 buttons, really. Okay, plug in a headset, that's 1. Find the recording software, 2. Turn on your video camera, 3. And then talk.
Yeah.
Okay? 4, there's only 4 things you need to learn.
Yeah. And there's really not much excuse anymore because it's getting easier and easier to just do that, to be honest.
And somebody got my mention of flipping over the CD. Thanks, Clint. I had an experience with my mother a few weeks ago where she was trying to flip over the CD. So, anti-technology people, how many people have that as an issue? Let's go ahead and write in the chat room. What's your biggest fear of technology? So Martina, when you first started this stuff, what was your biggest fear of technology?
What was my biggest fear of technology? Well, pretty much everything you've said. You know, I've been through all of that in the beginning, you know.
And look at you running your own Zoom rooms now.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying is, you know, the technology is getting easier and easier and easier now. And also what I always found, for me, it's nicer to be in a group and to work with people because you've got so much more bouncing off going on and, you know, hubs of interconnectivities and stuff. I would find it quite boring to do stuff on my own, to be honest.
Why?
Because I find it boring.
Why?
Bouncing off. I like you say something, I say something, they say something, they ask a question. This is what I like. I mean, I can do it, but
Why would you not like it? You can make it. You can turn joy on any time. You know that.
Yeah.
So what is the judgment you have of doing it alone?
I suppose I've done it so much. I've done it. I've done all these
In a
presentations.
in a corporate setting, sure.
Yeah, done it in a corporate setting, done it in the networking where I had to present my work, this is me, this is what I do, blah, 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 of that. I've done it.
But not in this setting.
Not in this setting. An hour talking without you.
Yeah. Can you do it?
Yeah.
Can you do it and have fun with it?
Yes.
I know you could too. You've already could go 30 minutes without taking a break.
Yeah. Yes, I can.
Okay. But what will you get out of doing it? Perspective. The whole point of the challenge is to help people with perspective that generates a perception that helps one determine conclusions versus judgments. That's the mechanics of why we put out homeworks and challenges like this for people. Everything is perspective and perception, so you can determine an open conclusion versus a judgment.
I like it from the perspective saying that you can do anything. Then it becomes pure choice. As soon as you have a hesitation and doubt, there is a little program and niggling behind it. And that takes you out of complete choice. Because what happens now, if you drop off, your internet goes, I've got to run the rest of the show. Or not. I could say, thank you very much, I'm out of here. Which
has happened. My internet has dropped.
Yeah, yeah. And I carried on at the time, I remember. So don't get ideas. Drop off. Stay where you are.
Bye-bye. It's all yours. I'm done for today. Clapped out.
I've done it. I don't need to practice it. But we've also started doing that now, actually, in the Zooms, that every host is starting to do their own hour. So we're practicing that too. So that's an opportunity too there.
Okay. So right now I want to turn this back to the audience members that are considering taking up this challenge. And now it's about subject matter. The whole point of doing it would be to heal oneself of the fears of being able to do it. Then the next part is, what do you actually talk about that can help dispel your own program's capacity to kick you out of your own body? Now, Martina, we have plenty of techniques, but what are some of the obvious techniques one can use as a self-speech, as self-help motivation, that has a particular subject matter around them, that can be a personal deprogramming?
So, yes, reading out loud, starting with your voice, starting to record your stuff and then getting used to the voice. That really helps you to stay in the body. Breathing exercises, any type of breathing exercises. Now, look, now he's doing it. I told him not to. I know.
I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm having internet issues.
Okay. So is that what you're getting at? So breathing exercises you can do in order to help you to stay in the body.
They would be teaching the breathing exercise as an example. So they'd be doing it, showing them how to do it, and then doing it at the same time, and then having to know, once the breathing exercise is done, how to come back deeper into one's body so that they can make the next part of the statement. There have been many shows where I've just given this amazing healing, and the very next call is a super depressy person that doesn't give a shit about the rest of reality and only wants to know their fucking purpose. Okay? Mm-hmm. Which is a deep distortion of energy when you go from that to that. People also have to challenge their brains to make deeper transitions. Mm-hmm. Okay? Where you have a deeper heart connection.
Mm-hmm. So I would say in order to overcome that or work with that, really drop all your barriers, like what we said before. If you get into a space where you start getting a bit icky or something, you expand yourself out and you start pulling the energy of everyone that is on the call, and you don't even have to say anything at this stage. but you're working your energetics, and it requires trust. And then there's always a good thing to actually ask yourself the question, what is required now? What is the next step? That type of stuff. So this is an inner type of coaching exercise you can ask yourself. When you get stuck with something, it's just like, okay, what is my next question? That type of stuff.
So listen to Martina's advice, everyone. Process what she just said. If you find yourself in the state of accepting the challenge, getting over the technology, and find yourself with your video looking at yourself, you have no notes. Okay? What do you do? What do you say? How do you engage people with no notes?
Yeah. So what is required? What is required right now for me?
A state of enthusiastic presence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So deep in the body with a form of heart and mind connection that allows you to enter the flow for 4 to 6 minutes.
Yes.
Remember, we started the show with the no plan, and we're 40 minutes into it.
Yeah.
How did we do that?
I don't know.
How did we do it? How did we do it?
We just switch it on. I don't know what we switch on. Does it take courage? It does take courage, but what does actually courage mean? Courage, a French word, comes from le cœur, the heart. So you've got to work with the heart.
Somebody's saying improv, but this isn't improv. This is knowingness. Both
that's
Martina
not improv.
and it's not improv.
Yeah.
This is Martina and I already in our information fields, knowing each other's pattern recognition and combining our statements together that just keep amplifying everything we're saying.
And guys, this is quite interesting actually, because I know what I somehow know what keeps Andrew interested. He knows what I'm interested. There's a lot in the background going on, because I know this guy gets bored very quickly. If you're not fast enough to catch him, he's like dropping off or he's changing the subject, talking about colonics again. So you got to really keep him engaged in order to get going and to keep going.
Okay. So the colonics, haha.
No,
It's what clears you.
Not today.
Somebody says Andrew taming. No, keeping up with the high frequency.
Yeah. It's totally different. That's that interplay. That's what I'm talking about. Knowing what is required. I don't even have to ask the question. Because I do it intuitively anyway. But if you do get stuck, then the question is a good idea.
So learning that interplay with yourself can be a challenge for a lot of people because they don't allow themselves to have regular internal dialogue. You can take your internal dialogue and externalize it. It's called talking to yourself with confidence.
Yeah. And, I've been doing this all my life. And there was a time where I judged myself for doing it because I thought I was going to go crazy, until I started realizing it's actually okay to do that. It's quite powerful. It's quite profound. It is actually teaching you to have a conversation with somebody else.
Or have an extended conversation with your own knowingness.
And it's a form of channeling. You're channeling yourself.
Okay. Let's break down the word channel. Multiple subsections brought into a focus. That's all it is. It doesn't mean all of this light worker bullshit behind it. That's myth.
And you might be surprised. Sometimes the stuff you come up with is quite interesting.
Exactly. Okay. And then the next thing is, once you've hit recording and you're in that flow and you're going, there's going to come a point where you feel an internal tiredness. And that is most people at 7 minutes to 9 minutes, their attention span is so challenged, they have problems staying focused on anything they need to say. So attention deficit disorder is one of those things that can be very difficult for some people growing up, where they have a 30-second time span or a 90-second or a 2-minute time span, and then they have to change subjects. Is that okay at a presentation?
It depends. It depends what you present, you know. It depends what you present. I think the best presenter has an understanding what's going on in the audience. There's no point. I've seen presenters doing their thing and they're very much in the flow and they have no contact with the audience and they're all fucking sleeping already and they just kind of go on and on and on. Very interesting subject matter and everything, but they've lost the audience. What's the point?
When you're doing this for yourself, you are the audience in the future who's no longer going to be in the presenter state, who's going to be in the observer state. So for those people that are going to take up the challenge, this is truly multidimensional mind and spirit tasking. Because the other part of the perception, perspective, and experience will be you listening to your own presentation in a non-judgmental state.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point, actually. When you've done that and then you listen to yourself and how you judge yourself or how you perceive yourself, then you can learn from that too. Yeah.
Okay. And for people that are having with their own trouble with their own public speaking, one of the largest public speaking groups in the whole world is called Toastmasters. And I highly recommend anybody with any public speaking fear whatsoever, go join a local Toastmasters group. You'll meet some cool ass people, learn some fun stuff, as well as being able to challenge some of those fears about talking in public.
And you know, even if you don't like how they do it, you learn how to not do it. And that's nothing wrong with that. I so much learned from people to look at them and say, okay, I would do it differently, but it gives you an indication of what you would like to do.
Yep. So as a reference, of all the shows that I've done, I've listened to every show, at least 90% of all my shows, at least once, some 3 or 4 times. Why? Because I learned something from them watching them too. Not only about myself, but about my audience, but about the energies in general, which helps me improve what I do.
Mm-hmm. I even transcribe them at times, you know, and sometimes I don't do it all the time. I just transcribed. I just looked at another one we did together and I thought, oh, wow, totally missed a few things, you know. Not just the words, but the dynamics, actually. As you say, how can you improve?
Okay. Sometimes just the listening itself will make the improvements. Just the listening to your own self will help you get over the fear of stumbling. Next time I stumble, I know what to do.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Summoning the confidence to stop the stumbling, and then the next thing you know, you're back in the flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, subject matter. We were talking about that before. The whole point is to do a deprogramming on you. So what somebody can do is pick any one of the contract revocations. If you really want to go for that 1 hour, do the consciousness strike. It takes you about 20 to 30 minutes to read out. Some people read it out real slow, and it takes 40 minutes to read out. Read a couple paragraphs, explain it. Read a couple paragraphs, explain it. Skip a few paragraphs, but just explain the paragraphs you just skipped. And that's a technique to get yourself into the flow with the subject matter you already do. You pick any one of the contract revocations and then expand about them, so that if you've regularly done any of the revocations, you're going to know innately what you've already learned from them. And in the moment, have a live aha that you can see when you're that observer later.
And it's quite interesting when you do something like that in front of an audience with other people, you sometimes have aha moments that you wouldn't have reading it by yourself at home.
Exactly, because you're more in your body in front of the audience.
Exactly. And everyone in the audience is a contribution, okay? If you say something or not.
And Carla is saying, I don't understand them well enough to explain them. Yes, you do. You understand them at your level, and you explain them at your level. You don't need to regurgitate teachings you don't understand. You understand what level you understand them at. And thus you will get a better understanding just by explaining them live and going through that cognitive moment, being in the body and summoning potent energy to go, aha, I figured out what that line means.
And this is such an important point here. And this is actually what it means, taking responsibility for the level of your awareness. Okay? That's what that actually means. There is nothing that you can't actually do as long as you take responsibility for the level of your particular awareness at that time.
You are only equal to your level of responsibility in the moment of doubt.
That's it.
That's a teaching so many people gloss over and gloss over and gloss over and gloss over. And some have dozens of ahas, but gloss over it later. Your responsibility is equal to your level of awareness, and your level of awareness is equal to your responsibility. Truly contemplate that, and life gets so much easier.
So let's give you another example of that. And you see a lot of that. I've seen you do so many readings now, and I often think, oh, why doesn't he tell him that? Because it's so obvious. But you don't, because you have an awareness what is a kindness to say and what is not, you know. Same the other way around again, you know. So that every reading is different depending on the person you're talking to.
Right. And then we get people that come into readings, especially in private sessions, that demand you tell them only what they want to hear. That's not what I do. That's not what a session is for. And then you have the tough moment of talking to the programs who are well educated in defending their positions of, I'm on running the situation. Why would you pay someone to come in and tell you only what you want to hear?
Yeah, because they don't, you know, this is not something that they are consciously aware of.
Some of them are. Some of them are, because they've been in charge and control of their reality so long. That's all they know how to do.
But it's, you know what, it's actually similar to, I remember when I used to do Bowen and I started, you know, doing, and people started losing control. They asked me to stop the treatment because they could not handle losing control. So
exactly.
That type of thing. And I was like, what are you doing? No, I pay you, I have to go. It started to feel so uncomfortable because their lives were so messed up that if they would have started relaxing a bit more, letting go of the control, they would have completely fallen apart, and they couldn't allow that.
Right. I can't tell you how many sessions I get in, and people only have a narrow thing of what they want to know. And when you give them the narrow thing, they don't know what else to ask. And they go back to that narrow thing, and they think only that narrow thing is going to define who they are.
Yeah. And it's also a lot of projection and expectation that that is the one thing that will take them out of their misery.
Exactly. When in fact, it will only make their misery worse.
Yeah. It's a preempting already of what could actually come out of a session.
Right. Which is me stepping on their journey because their level of awareness is not equal to their responsibility.
Exactly.
That's the challenge of doing work at this level. What are they responsible for? I clearly see it in their energy field, what they're not taking responsible for, and what their curiosity learning and what they're taking on as responsibility that they don't have an awareness of, which then lowers their overall potential frequency and capacity to do anything in their world.
And this is the client then that actually judges you, saying, oh, you didn't give me a good reading.
Or you didn't tell me what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why did you come here, right? If you
right.
You obviously know what you want to hear, so just, you know.
Just tell yourself then.
Exactly. But hey, we've all been there, done it in the beginning, so yes.
But then there are the people, I stress this, that get so advanced into being told what they want to hear. Those people that are running the cheap sessions, that's all the experience level they're looking for. And when you run into somebody who's really good at what they do, the instant judgment of, they didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. That something's wrong with them. It's not wrong with me.
Oh, no, absolutely. I had a client walk out a couple of years ago because I was doing something. This is not what I came here for. And I'm thinking, okay.
I'm going to make a statement. I had a client a number of years back. he came onto the private session and he wanted to do 90 minutes right away. And he's telling him his story right in the beginning. And he's telling me about microdosing LSD. And he's telling me he's taking 15 solid hits as a single microdose. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then he proceeded to tell me, no matter what you say, I know in my heart that's the right volume to do. So I had 90 more minutes of dealing with this person who on a regular basis does 15 hits of LSD as a microdose. Okay? And this guy has children. Okay? And wonders why no one wants to listen to anything he says. But God has spoken to him through the LSD. Yeah, you're tripping your nuts off even when you're not doing it. Okay? But his ego had taken over spirituality so much, he had said, I'm a light worker. Rainbows and butterflies come out of my ass. I can do no wrong. And everything being told to me in my spirituality is my truth. And no one else can alter that. Those were literal words from him.
So now I've got to ask you a question here. So we always talk about a certain frequency attracts a certain frequency. Why would a person like that be attracted to a reading with you? Because you are in the sacred neutral and you don't do that type of distinction?
Well, first thing first, the person's perception can force a match. That's the first thing to understand.
That's right.
So
Forced evolution. Okay.
When you reach this teacher level, and anybody that reaches the teacher level, the whole teaching is everything is your reflection is bullshit. That's light work or garbage. Everything is your reflection that you're summoning to your reality, and all the teal people are going, me. No, it's bullshit at the higher level. There comes a separation of what is your reflection and what is a forced imprint upon you through tacit consent in the unseen world. Until I go, no, I'm not that match, through my statements of what I say back, because my responsibility is equal to my level of awareness and yours isn't. Therefore, it is the abuse of that rule of reflection.
So that's forcing the signature frequency, basically.
Correct. And once you force a signature frequency, you are in personal forced evolution that makes it very easy to step on another's journey without care or awareness.
Yeah. Cool. That's a nice one to mention again, because, you know, that's the old paradigm of thinking, you know, everything I attract who I am. So that is obviously not. That's what you called this the other day, diet woke or something?
Diet woke, yes.
Diet woke, yeah. So that's one of those diet woke drinks. Don't drink it.
Okay. So there are some aspects that generate people to come to a reading because they truly want to heal that aspect. And is that a match? Well, for that one aspect that wants a healing, it's a match. And will that aspect be in the body to go through the healing? And will the I am be in the body with the aspect and not feel crowded? Like when we do the aspect work, and we talk about the different aspects and we're healing, we're getting them to be in the body at the same time and integrate with each other, and to not have states of disassociative properties of the self, so that they can make the reassociation and connections with each other.
Yeah. I think it's possible like that, because if they have made a choice, if they can see the pattern within themselves or have an inclination that this is what it is and make a choice of changing it, then it's possible.
I'll use another example. A couple of weeks ago, I had a session from a lady, and all she wanted to know was her galactic history. And I made a statement going, you know, sometimes it's not about all your galactic history. It's what's in the moment of now that affects you. And I ended up going 20 minutes over the session with her. And it was this powerful motivation scenario of getting her up off of her ass, getting her out of the limitations she had put herself in, all stuff that she agreed with left and right. But then later writes a message back that she wants a refund because I didn't tell her galactic history. What do you do when that happens?
To be honest, just give her what she wants.
No. That would be stepping on my journey. That would be lessening
Stepping on your journey.
And lessening me as a teacher.
Ah, that's a good one to say. So that we hardly ever talk about stepping on your own journey here.
Right.
So
I would devalue myself. I would devalue myself.
Interesting.
By giving information that has no value to the person's awareness or rules. And what came up in the session was exactly what needed to come up.
Ah. So how is not stepping on your journey working by not stepping on her journey? So that's quite an interesting balance to create, right?
Always a challenge to remain the neutral even after the session is over.
Yeah, yeah. But you see, this is why I love facilitating. I'm an empowerment facilitator, so I then go into the question. For me, that's not stepping on her journey, not stepping on my journey. I just ask her a question and allowed her then to come up with whatever comes up. And then I work with that because that changes the level of awareness already.
Okay. In that particular situation, I didn't give the person a refund because I went 20 minutes over with them. At a whole point of giving this person how to completely change the stuckness that they were in. And they knew they were stuck. They just didn't want to face it. All they wanted to know was their galactic history would unstick them.
Yeah.
And it never was going to. It was only going to make them stuck more.
So she could probably not hear any of what you said.
That's exactly what her letter's going back. I'm going to use none of this self-help stuff you said to me. Even though during the session, it was profound for the person in the moment.
Yeah.
That's rejecting of the healing. Therefore, you can't step on my journey anymore. I have my boundaries too.
I think that's a really good point. What I actually do there, I have developed the way I do it too is I developed a lot of trust to my body with my body. And it's almost like when I get to a stage where I'm not being received with the information, it's almost like there are no words coming out, which is quite interesting. I've had that where I was talking to people in the beginning when I realized what my body was doing. In the beginning, I was like, I couldn't speak English. And what's going on? I can't speak English. And then I started realizing that my body actually said to me, back off. She can't hear you or he can't hear you.
Exactly. Now, somebody was just saying we see this in a lot of the Thursday shows. We do. A number of, I think maybe 5-6 months ago, would a lady call in who every answer I asked her was, no, I never had this. 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 She was the no lady. And then I asked her about her abuse from the priests when she was young. And she went, oh, how do you know that? I'm psychic, dummy.
Yeah. That blows the resistance out when you come out with stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. But she was knowing everything because she was demanding I give her a validation to her personal propaganda.
Yeah, it's the validation. Yeah.
Okay. She was making sure that I would only validate her internal propaganda and her spiritual experiences. Okay. And then I hit her with the abuse from the priests. I couldn't deny it anymore. And then we went into this extended healing of the priest abuse energy where she's bawling her eyes out. Okay. But I had to literally face the propaganda, the Fox News propaganda, and then hit it with something it wasn't prepared for.
Yeah.
So people have to learn to do that to themselves. You got to know when you're feeding your own Fox News propaganda line. Okay? And if you're pro Fox News, MSNBC or CNN, stop those alternate propaganda lines from making statements in space inside you.
And a good way of finding out yourself if you are in Fox News or any type of news propaganda is when you actually consistently align and agree, resist and react within your own conversation. There's constantly a because, there's constantly too much. It's almost too much information.
Mm-hmm.
We get to a stage where the program's gone. There's almost only a question left. Question, interesting. Next question, interesting. Follow on, that type of stuff. Right. It's the blah, blah, blah. Then you know that there's too much programming going on.
Right. And when you're dealing with your own programming, those are the challenges. So I'm going to bring up a next metaphor here. We get regular in the callers, people that are vegetarians, but they're very bad vegetarians. They don't count their protein. They end up anemic. In the 10 plus years of me doing these sessions, I cannot tell you how many hundreds of people have come to me and have been raw vegan for years and years and years, and they're the most sickest people in the world. They're haunted, they have no friends, etc., etc., etc. But they will not give up the one thing that's causing it all. Okay? Now, you can take vegetarian out of it and replace it with a variety of other subject matters, but it's consistently the vegetarians or the pure raw vegans who are using social justice philosophy to deteriorate their own body. Okay?
So is that a form of controlling their lives?
Like, it's a self-destructive. It's a self-destruction pattern.
Yeah,
pure self-destruction. Because anybody, like, you could listen to the shows that I did with David. David is a pure 100% raw vegan, has been since he was 12 years old, and he's 250 pounds of solid muscle. He's learned how to be a good vegan. And he and I have had many shows where we literally talked about the difference between being a good vegan and a bad vegan. It's education and implementation. Anyone can live the vegan lifestyle and have a healthy living if you truly understand what you're supposed to do with it. And then there comes the people, philosophy and social justice drive the way they cook and what they eat because they're horrible shoppers, lazy with their own cooking, and don't really want to put their own energy into their own food.
Yeah.
Which does what in the long term? Takes away your overall energy to do anything. Okay? So I'm not beating up on the vegans. I'm beating up on the social justice philosophical. I can't eat that fish. It's dead. It's alive. The salad you're eating is more alive than that dead fish. Your philosophy doesn't add up. Okay? You can eat anything and not feel guilty about it. If you're feeling guilt for eating something, that is a spiritual issue you should be taking care of on inner work. And still you can maintain the vegetarian concept in health and living without that social justice destructive factor in you.
Yes, and also I would also, again, refer back to the relationship with your body. How much do you actually communicate with your body? What does your body want to eat? I mean, that's a valid question to continuously speak to your body along those lines.
Right.
Because, yes, you have a body, but you're not it.
Mm-hmm. So vegetarians, again, I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on the bad vegetarians. When you get out of that philosophy state, you can maintain your body perfectly. Getting out of that judgment and the accepting of the love of the food, whatever the food is, it's being open to this pure, sacred, neutral point of view.
Yeah. Judgment is toxic. You've heard it so many times. I mean, you hear it so many times that people, they are trying to eat organic. They're doing whatever they do, yeah? And because of the resistance behind it, because of the judgment behind it, they're doing more damage to their bodies than if they would just actually allow themselves to eat whatever the body requires.
Exactly. And then there are the food programs that certain people have, which are like bulimia, overeating, undereating, so on and so forth, that amplify this negative frequencies about food itself.
Yeah, and that is actually a control issue. What I've been finding in my practice, that anorexia and bulimia, is that all they can control in their heads, they've lost control over everything else through the programming, and all they can control is their food. That's what they think.
then that becomes a very self-destructive, repetitive pattern of self-defeat over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
What are the long-term damages of bulimia? Most people don't realize it. Complete and total gut disorder, a destruction of the esophagus, the taking of the gag reflex away, the acidic energies that enter the lungs. It can cut decades off of your life, literally.
And that's only the physical, because think of the social implications. You're constantly under stress. You're constantly having to leave the table. And people know what you're doing. So it's the judgment and the projections that you're actually picking up from others whilst you're doing what you're doing, which is another toxic element.
Mm-hmm. And there are so many diets out there that people are not strict about. And then they do fake curiosity learning, and they say they're doing the diet, but in fact, they never really are. This is the other thing where people self-prognosis and they fail most of the time because they don't have the discipline to follow through.
Yeah, I think we chatted about that, isn't it? Those Google prognosis, where you just start Googling your things and then you put yourself into that sort of belief system. You create actually a belief system around it that keeps you stuck more than anything else.
That's right. And then you're never going to get out of it because your propaganda is so strong. Nobody knows better than you. It
becomes an identity almost.
That's right.
It becomes a way of control. Okay, that's the empath control. Lots of people control others through sickness, through eating disorders, and all sorts of things. It's quite interesting to look at that, and it's a tough one to look at.
It's challenging.
It's challenging. So, I can I ask you a question then?
Sure.
We were talking about empath, the narcissist empath thingy. And I remember, not actually after all of that, not really having a much of a connection to the empath, but I could much more identify from earlier days with the martyr. What is the different energy between empath and martyr? I know it's a bit off.
Well, an empath will inevitably become a martyr to others. A martyr is someone who is giving up their core life frequency, and the emergencies of others are more important to them, or the subject matter in which they are martyring themselves, social justice, etc., ultimately is a self-destructive factor to them. Mm-hmm. Like some of those people who become ultra 5G opponents, ultra vax opponents, and alienate everyone in their life. That's being a martyr to a cause. Okay, and then there's people that are martyrs to themselves, empaths who have lost themselves completely and just are a martyr in general and have no self-identity anymore. And oftentimes they become narcissists, martyrs and narcissists.
Exactly.
Or they end the martyrship to become a narcissist.
Yeah, I was wondering if that is the case. A martyr doesn't necessarily have to be an empath, but it can actually be a narcissist or both. So that makes sense. I just needed that clear.
Yes.
That makes sense to me from an energetic.
Most situations, a martyr and a narcissist can't be in the same body. They may be challenging during a while, and the narcissist usually takes over, and the martyrship ends because the narcissist is all about themselves, and the martyr is all about giving away to others and saving nothing for yourself.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that.
Okay. So, Martina, we're going to set a section where we're going to take some calls about the subject matter we're talking about. Today is not about personal private readings for you. It's about self-motivation, self-help, putting on your own show, challenging your programs, so on and so forth. So, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of callers and see who is next.
All righty. Cindy Lou Quevedo.
Cindy Lou, are you there? Cindy Lou.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi. How are you doing today? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Pflugerville, Texas, just outside of Austin.
Welcome to the show. What did you want to talk with us today?
Actually, I get a little confused with all the language, so I wouldn't mind if you tell me if you could, what type of thing I would need to improve upon as far as myself, because I do talk to myself quite often and I pray. So I don't know what else I could do to, I don't know, self-improvement and I'm a pretty busy person in my type of employment. So I don't have a lot of free time.
What do you do for a job?
I actually work for the state as what's called an investigator for the people that are potentially abused or neglected as adults or otherwise incapable of protecting themselves.
Okay, so you investigate abuse energies, and that's
Yes.
regularly around you. Well,
Correct.
the first thing you do is you got to learn to carve out time, no matter how much the job is, because inevitably you're going to martyr yourself to the job.
Oh, yes. Yes, I know that. I was doing this type of work in California and I burnt out pretty quickly because I'm a very much a determined person that I don't give up. So
sure, but that ultimately makes you the martyr to the cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to determine to yourself what's your cutoff date.
Yeah. And I'm starting to realize that I'm giving myself cutoff times over here and then trying to make it less and less so.
Well, you also have, like, if I'm just reading your energy right now, you have far too many cases you haven't let go of in your brain, in your soul.
Excuse me?
You have many cases that you haven't let go of.
That could be. You're correct.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to learn some spiritual hygiene and begin purging those out of your reality. Otherwise, you're never going to have any time to yourself. You're already in the martyred state. And the conversations you have to have with yourself is summoning the martyr aspect who will go until you're dead, but you're going to lead an unfulfilled life at the end.
Okay.
So I want to bring Martina in here to talk with you a little about, from a woman's point of view, about an obsessing job, such as what you've got.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, the most important thing when you do work with that subject matter like abuse, the sovereignty boundaries of yourself have to be really, really strong. So fortifying your reality is something that you have to really consciously look at. And really recognizing and acknowledging when that energy, that toxic energy, is actually infiltrating into your physicality, mind, spiritual, and all of that, and starting to have more awareness of that when you're actually doing it, and then continuously using spiritual hygiene to actually, even if you don't aware of it, make yourself like a daily plan when you come home from your office, and then just really do your cleanliness program, if you wish, to disperse all that negative energy, that toxic energy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm working from home primarily right now, so I've actually thought about, I've heard about these things that help to get rid of the EMF stuff too, and I don't know about that.
That has nothing to do with what you're in. And that's you've got to understand you're in the martyred state and you're not giving to yourself, and self-love and self-healing and self-nurturing are probably foreign to you right now. And you've got to recover those states.
They probably always have been, because I've always been in this type of a thing.
Then change.
Yeah.
Go get a different job.
I would love to.
What's stopping you? What's stopping you?
Paying bills.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Well, what I'd want to do is have my own flower stand or something like that.
Well, then you'd be living like a pauper.
Huh?
But then you'd be living like a pauper.
Exactly.
So you got to use your educated mind how to get yourself out of this, but you've only been using your educated mind for others, and you have no way out.
Right.
Thus, the answer is get rid of the job and find some other corporate job that's human resource based, and you'll be fine. You won't be dealing with the abuse anymore.
Correct.
All right, darling, I got to let you go. Move on to the next caller. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye.
Okay. All right, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of callers and see who is next.
Alrighty. Carrie, keep it simple, STA.
Carrie, keep it simple. Are you there?
Oh, so excited. I'm calling from Hobestown, Florida.
Bullstown, Florida. Welcome to the show.
Hobestown.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
So what did you think about today's show, what we were talking about?
Well, it's interesting because I found it really synchronistic, of course, because I started my own YouTube channel to get over some of my fears as well.
And what kind of subject matters you talk about?
Whatever comes up when I'm in flow, which is what you guys are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is having to do with boundaries. So when you have people that call in, and I know your last caller just was speaking about boundaries, connecting with people, but obviously, and Martina talked about the feelings in her body and recognizing not to go certain places. But if people bring up questions,
Now we can hear you. Yes.
yay!
You're talking about boundaries. Okay.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes. And that was really just my question in regards to your show today. I actually have a session scheduled with you in person too. So I'm really excited about that.
Great. So boundaries as a presenter is what you're asking about?
Correct.
Those are the most important boundaries. You already have to be secure in your skin with your own boundaries, and then understand there are going to be new boundaries that you create because clients will forever challenge them.
Right.
And they will challenge them in new and odd ways that trigger you to get out of your neutrality, to get out of your higher sense of knowingness, so you don't feed their own inner demons.
Right.
Far too often, people book a session with me, and it's actually the demon inside them that's booking the session. Not to heal the human, but to heal the demon and make the demon better.
Right.
That's why so many really bad psychics still have jobs, because they're feeding the demons. Can you see how that's easy for people to get pulled into?
Yes.
Okay. So what boundaries have you created?
Well, I find myself going into a space of home and asking a lot of questions. Are you talking about myself personally?
Yes, your boundaries with your personal boundaries with clients or yourself or others.
Trying to stay neutral, I guess, is one of the ways to do it, and just visualizing, staying present, I think kind of helps me bring up that awareness of when somebody is overstepping or going into a place that isn't necessarily the highest good, I guess.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Martina, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I love that. I also do a lot of completely present moment, staying in the question. And being aware of the forced signature frequencies and when you have to out vibrate.
Mm-hmm. What, and your 4 signature frequencies are?
The forced, when something is being forced upon you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And obviously after some time you develop a knowingness. Am I speaking to a program? Am I speaking to a demon? And things like that. And my best advice is you don't necessarily, entertain speaking to demons. You just either clear them or change.
I've just usually gotten off, said no thank you at that moment.
So there are times that I talk about where I have people do this repeat after me process, and I know there's a demon in there, and all I want to do is get the demon to say their words, and it's kicked out of the body long enough for the human to repeat the words normally. And there's strategy that one can use when you have a knowingness that there are invader or external entities or internal entities that have hijacked the system, which makes it very hard for the soul to get in. And there are a variety of techniques, word order phrases that when used strategically, the greatest good you could do is give them a moment of clarity and aha, in which they will have to build their own stairway out of despair. But it's also not crossing the line and giving your core energy to the soul trying to get into the body, because you've just fed the demon. You've heard the term, don't feed the trolls. Same thing comes with don't feed the demon.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that goes without saying. If you say any session that you do never give your core energy. You're working with universal energy. Your core energy is yours.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And all too often when people do session
Right.
after session after session, you want to believe that that person can do it. I believe you can. And poof, there's some core energy.
Well, this is where you have to use your awareness. Just because you can see the potential doesn't mean that people are actually stepping into it.
Exactly. And that's a getting back to that base knowingness. Is their awareness equal to their level of responsibility? And are they responsible to their level of awareness?
Yeah.
That's an algorithm of observation.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've mastered that algorithm of observation through the many sensory inputs and outputs that I have. Constantly, there's a constant algorithmic measurement of awareness, responsibility, and awareness when I'm having a conversation with a person. And that's a part of the sacred neutral. I've integrated it completely into the sacred neutral perspective.
And in order to get there, the journey to get there, you can actually, as you are talking to that person, you can have this internal question: is this person going to hear what I'm saying? Is he going to receive it? You get a yes, you get a no, and then you work. You have to trust yourself. This is how you're going to work until it becomes second nature, like with Andrew.
Okay. All right, darling, I got to let you go and move on to the next caller. Thank you so much. All right, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of callers and see who is next.
Okay, Latoya.
Latoya, are you there?
Hello.
There you go.
Hey. Perfect. Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm doing actually really well. I'm getting ready to prepare and move up to Seattle on Thursday.
Great. So what did you think of today's show?
It was actually pretty good. It reminded me kind of like when I was back in high school and in middle school, and I would do like the in-school TV shows and stuff. I was really big into that, and I haven't done anything like that in a long time. So it kind of took me back to that memory.
Well, maybe it's something for you to go and re-experience.
Possibly. It is something that I'm thinking about. I'm actually going to go into naturopathic medicine, so it may be something I can use in my practice.
Well, you always need self-help, self-promotion materials. And most naturopaths are in the Stone Age with any type of marketing. Sorry, all the naturopaths out there, but you're still in the Stone Age.
There are a few. Yes, you're correct about that. I know
they do the Fred Flintstone School of Marketing.
Yes.
So what questions did you have for us today?
I mean, basically I was just calling to listen into the show, but like my questions were personal, so I really didn't have much. I was just relating to what you guys were talking about. So there's not really much that I have to ask, like in terms of self-help, because I've been on this self-help journey, for like the last 7 years or so, just coming into my own spiritual awareness and getting rid of things that don't serve me anymore. So it's like, I feel like I'm on the right path. I feel like I'm doing the right things. So, I mean, what do you think?
So what is the biggest thing you've learned from your self-help journeys?
I think the biggest thing for me is to not lead in fear. Like, I've had a lot of stuff that's happened to me throughout my life personally, and, just from growing up and being in turmoil states. And it's like, I've lived my life in fear for a very long time. Like, even this move that I'm taking on Thursday, it's taken me 4 years to go, and I'm just jumping into it now.
Wonderful. All right, darling. Thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
I shall. So, Martina, let's call this the end of the show today. We've talked a lot of stuff. Now, for those of you who choose to take on this homework of doing a 1-hour show that's self-help motivation for yourself, in which you will have an audience of one yourself, okay? Remember, you could overcome all the technological things. You only learn to hit 4 buttons, okay? Even the most technologically inept person can learn to hit 4 buttons. Okay. So I encourage everyone to go back and listen to some of the many things that Martina and I talked about and take it on as a self-challenge of self-promotion, to put yourself in that presenter state, to get over your fears, to clear some of your own programs and find that flow and talk. All right, Martina, give people a way for get a hold of you.
Synchholistic.co.uk. You can, that's why I'm doing sessions. You get all the details on this one. Yeah, thank you, Rob. And we're also doing our weekly free Zooms on Wednesday, 5 o'clock GMT time with our Earth Nouveau team. And Mary will be hosting it tomorrow, and it's all about the relationship with yourself. So that's where you can actually practice coming on if you haven't done it before, and you can speak up, raise your hand, talk with or without your pictures, and get a bit of a feedback.
Wonderful. And everybody over there at the Earth Nouveau group is a mentorship student of mine, the people that are running it in the background. People that have been very, very familiar with the material. So I highly recommend you go and stop into those Zoom rooms and look at some of the past shows. And every now and then when I can, I like to jump in there and just have a good talk with everyone. All right, everyone, we will be back this coming Thursday for another adventure into reality where I'll be taking calls, doing sessions and readings for everyone as a part of normal call-in show. All right, Robert, take us away.
Thank you. Bye.
Each different bubble of reality is true. A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma. Nudge, nudge, it's the Holy Grail. Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
Hello, let's create, let's co-create, and let's change this world with love. No matter if you're from Alpha Centauri or Earth, we all began with the same birthing process. We live in a limited point of view. Living the mystical life daily is about striving for the unlimited point of view. Each day, each human being gets an infinite amount of choices. Living the mystical life daily is about facing obstacles and challenges. The level of awareness that you are working at means you have a responsibility to be equal with it. How does one truly let go of expectation? You can make the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to sleep sacred. The keys to success: choice, 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 and choice.